Welcome to Sounds Like Mike, the show that teaches you how to live a healthy, creative lifestyle and how to make your passion your job. I'm your host, Mike, and today we interview Ralph and Floyd Gonzales. Together, Ralph and Floyd's work has been featured by GQ, Rolling Stone, and Red Bull, among many others. They're two creative workforces. One is a photographer, one is a videographer, and today we talked about working and collaborating with other creators, when it's okay or not okay to work for free, and the importance of separating your personal life from your work life.
Filmmaking, photography, all of that stuff is literally a team sport. You can't do it solo without, in the end of the day, burning yourself out, driving yourself insane, and just being overworked to the max.
We kind of just jumped into the conversation, so as far as introductions go, Ralph is the first guest to speak and Floyd jumps in a little bit later. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into the podcast. Okay, so this is one thing I wanted to talk about is you guys do a lot of work together, but you guys don't have like a website together as far as I know. You're not like a duo, but I mean, in a way you are. You're a duo behind the scenes. So like, why did you choose to, why are you guys solo acts, but you're, like producing each other's stuff? Like, why is that?
Well, I think the nice benefit of having our own solo work is that in case any of us, either of us decide to diverge into niche markets, that it allows us that opportunity to do so and then kind of become experts in that field without having to kind of combine the brand together and just kind of say, hey, we're a package duo this way. Right. Because if you are a package duo and you've been doing nothing but let's say, sports or bike work, right? And you've been doing that, then that brand and your name gets associated with that.
That's fair. I feel like I'm in a similar situation, but almost like the opposite, where whenever I get work that comes in through something orange, I feel like obligated to, I have to share it with Shay. If it comes into the email, Shay, my business partner, which isn't a problem because it's coming in through our company, right? But it's gigs that essentially I could do on my own. And so it's sort of, we haven't really figured out the partnership aspect of it.
Well, and that's the other side of it too, is Floyd and I have our own contacts. We have our own opportunities and projects that aren't together. And then that gives us that freedom to be able to either hire the other person out if we need to, if we feel like they're the best part or the best option for that role. Yeah. But then it also gives us that opportunity to say even for clients, especially on their end, if they see you as an individual and as a freelancer, as a solo, then they see it as an easier hire. Because I used to own a production company with 3 of my buddies, and then we hired on and took on 4 other people. So we had a full crew of 8 total. Yeah. And that was a far harder sell than I've ever anticipated in my life for projects, because every client, when they hear, it's we have a crew of 8 people, so we're really versatile of what we can do. Yeah. Expectations go up, quality, the idea of quality goes up, and the idea of cost goes up too in their minds. Right. So that becomes so much harder to sell. And so when it came to me pitching these projects out to a bunch of these small businesses, no one would be biting for an 8-person crew. Right. Totally. And especially when that 8-person crew, everyone's still learning. Yeah. So the idea of having your own solo projects that you have a roster of people to pull from that that they're experts at, hell yeah.
I mean, on the other hand, too, I have kind of thought about building a more unified brand with us two together, just so it has, when we're selling ourselves as a package, it can go under this company as opposed to me subcontracting you or the other way around, right? So I think there could be a benefit in creating some sort of unified brand between both of us. Right. I think that's still kind of in the works.
It definitely, I feel like having both, it works both ways. And it's important. I think it's valuable to have both because there's those clients that are bigger that don't necessarily want to go for the mom and pop shop, and you want to appeal to, the bigger budgets. And you're never going to get bigger budgets if you're just a solo act, unless you have a long standing client. But if it's someone new and they're a big company, they want to work with other companies, right? But I definitely agree with everything you're saying. But the something orange is we've found that, we've hit some pretty big gigs through that. But there's always complications when we're doing mom and pop type stuff.
Yeah. Well, and on the other side too, is when we started applying for some of these bigger bids. So when Floyd, myself, we're looking at some of these bids for projects.
Yeah.
We saw one for Lululemon, and there's no way that either of us on our own with our own solo brands would be able to land a project that big, especially with a budget of, what was it, like 15 grand?
Yeah, it was around 20.
Yeah, around 20 grand. So that makes no sense for a singular person who, you know, who doesn't have like a background in like producing content as often or as frequent as possible. Like the only person in my mind that could really pull off something like that would be like a Matt Diavella or like a Sam Calder, because they have that kind of following in that background. And for us who are still in the small area or small niche, it doesn't make sense for, you know, a company to put in so much money to a single individual to like execute an entire project.
Well, what was the project?
They wanted to build, no, it was a campaign. So it was to work with like 4 influencers.
No, it was to work with their brand ambassadors, local brand ambassadors.
So yeah, they'd be looking for like a media agency then for something like that.
And so it made sense for us to be able to put it underneath our company with like 3 other videographers or 2 other videographers, where each of us had a specific role playing into it. Yeah. So it made sense for us to kind of like come together as a whole unit and then offer it that way rather than us individually putting in our singular bids, because that makes it a lot more pressure on the person, their name and reputation on the line. And it makes it so much harder for them to execute it if they're the ones who has that reputation and that backing into it. It's like investing into a company. Yeah. Right? If it's your name on the sign, that means you're investing at least a good solid 80%, and you're going to be the one that's pushing it so much harder than anyone else you would hire. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense to kind of have like everyone underneath like the same flagship name. So that way it's like an easier accountability or even accountability distribution with everyone.
Right. So how do you, when you guys work on stuff together, how do you delegate responsibilities? I know we talked about this a little bit before, but like, how do you decide who does what, who takes what role, who gets the most money? Because, you know, there's always an uneven distribution of work. There's always got to be somebody in charge. So how do you guys sort of deal with that when a new client comes your way and you're like, oh, I want to get Floyd in on this, or they come to, you know, you guys together or something like that?
Well, on my end, like specifically the way I operate is that depending on who's the first of contact. Yeah. Whoever the first of contact is, whoever is the one that's like putting in their name, their like demo reel, their stuff that's being shown to the client, and the client is speaking to them directly. Yeah. They're the ones who, in my opinion, have like the 70% control.
They got dibs.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But then that's when you have to kind of pull your ego aside and kind of trust in their vision. And like with someone like Floyd, I worked with him for the last like 1.5 2 years.
Almost 2 probably.
Yeah, about 2 years of just nonstop working. Like we worked together every weekend for a whole year, not taking a break, and just shooting and shooting and shooting, practicing. And to the point where sometimes on set, we don't even need to talk to each other, but we respect each other and know that the other one can execute it properly, and that we can go to the other one and there's no ego in the way. Right. That's the biggest thing that I've come to learn, is that you can't ride any positions when you're taking a project. You kind of have to do what's best for the project and know that whoever's taking it on board is like having to run the ship, but it doesn't mean that you can't give your 2 cents on the project as well.
The problem,
No, yeah, it depends. I think it definitely depends on the project. It's case by case basis, but if we do get approached as both of us, usually the breakdown is pretty much 50-50, or else it'll go towards gear and stuff. Yeah. But if someone approaches me just for me, I usually try and find ways to hire them out as either my first assistant or lighting or second shooter if need be, right? So
yeah, and vice versa too. Yeah. Like we had Floyd on set for a wedding once as a boom guy, and he's never touched audio. Yeah. And so on the time, I would be teaching him how to work the audio recorder and how to be able to boom at the same time. Just because in the end of the day, I understand that he'll be there. I can, you know, touch base with him anytime I want. And I'm comfortable enough with Floyd to be able to give him feedback and to be able to say, hey man, the last take didn't go so well. Try aiming more towards their mouth. And I know he'll take it well.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think it's essential having like someone that you really trust, that you can bounce off of, that you can hire? You think it's been like pivotal for you, or do you think you could have done without it? How does this play into your career overall?
Like in my opinion, any kind of creative field, it's a team sport. Like filmmaking, photography, all of that stuff is literally a team sport. You can't do it solo without, in the end of the day, burning yourself out, driving yourself insane, and just being overworked to the max.
Yeah.
That's why I think that, you have to make friends in this industry. You have to be able to, push your ego aside and allow other ideas to flow in, because there are so many things that could go wrong. And if you're not paying attention to the people around you, to, your clients, your customers, to your talent, so many things can go wrong, and that all lands on your head. And that's so much pressure. So I think it's integral for anyone in this business to make friends. That's my big thing. Yeah. I don't know what you will.
No, I completely agree. It's definitely all about like collaboration and teamwork, especially in this industry, because you kind of rely on each other to fall back on if you need advice, or if there's jobs upcoming. Like if you can't take something on, but someone else may be able to, just refer them back. And just knowing that you have someone who could be reliable for a gig is definitely useful for projects, right?
Yeah. So I think a big part of that and working with people is being self-aware on knowing what your own strengths are and your own weaknesses are. One thing that I struggled with, especially early on, like working in my creative partnership, was like, obviously I wanted to be the camera operator, I want to be the director of photography, but you can't always be that every single time. And I just, I'm a control freak. And so it's taken me a lot of work to kind of rein it in and realize what I'm good at and what I really enjoy doing, and then what would benefit the project the most. And working in a partnership situation, it's good to know how to kind of step back and be like, oh, Floyd would be better for this than I would, and I'm just going to manage in that way, or vice versa.
And it is super stressful if you're on a job and you're trying to think of every little thing that needs to get done. Most often than not, you're going to forget something. And when someone else is kind of in that driver's seat, you can know that everything else is getting done while you're doing your own specific job, right? So
knowing how to delegate is huge, especially on like sets, like outside of the corporate world. If we're talking like, the film world, like the narrative world, you see a lot of sort of green directors and DPs that will like, if something needs adjusting, they'll like, run from the monitor and adjust it themselves rather than asking a grip, because it feels faster, and it might be faster in the moment. But over the span of the day, they're taking their attention away from the creative, and that slows down the production altogether. So knowing how to delegate like that is huge, especially in a partnership.
Well, and just from personal experience, so like, to kind of paint a picture here.
Yeah.
So with my very first production company that I got to work with, and, feel free to work with this whatever way you want to, but I felt like some of the issues that we really came across with was when people took the idea of their positions way too seriously. Yeah. Where one person who thought they were like the producer of a shoot meant that they had kind of like a higher say over anyone else in that shoot.
Yeah.
So there'd be times where, you would catch them like texting on set, or just kind of being in the way of other people. And, if you're in that area where you allow your ego to kind of, dictate from the position you're in, and you think that you have some sort of higher power than everyone else on set, and that you don't have like, even though you have nothing to do and you're just there, and you're saying, oh, I'm just talking to someone and networking. To me, that's just being in the way. That's not contributing to the project as a whole. And that's just letting your ego get in the way of not only your progress, but the progress of the shoot. And it's stunting everyone from being able to actually create a finished product.
So I have a hilarious story that relates to exactly that. So, oh my God, I don't even know. There's a lot of people that are going to, if anyone listens to this, that will know who this is. Okay. I was working with this producer. It's the same producer that I made that status about. Okay. This nightmare producer that I was working with. And so I can't remember exactly what we were doing. We were shooting in the studio. And then I think we were waiting on something. We were waiting on grips or something like that. And all of a sudden, one of the lights, like, just kind of, we heard a big crash, and one of the lights turned off outside of their little room that we were shooting in. Mm-hmm. And then everyone kind of like looked around. They were like, "What was that?" And then someone said, I can't remember what they said. They're like, "Oh, can someone like get some bandages or something like that?" No. And so we were just like, "Oh shit!" Like somebody got hurt. So I just like jumped up and went out to see what I could do. Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the grips, he was pretty new. He was lowering a light stand, and instead of grabbing the riser that he would have like bringing the light down, basically, he grabbed underneath the riser and then loosened the knuckle.
Oh, okay, so it just
went.
Yeah, and he was looking right up at it, and it was this huge, heavy light. He was looking right up at it, and he was standing on the stand. It was a big stand, so he was standing on the stand, loosened the knuckle. He was looking up at the light, and the light came crashing down onto his forehead, and then he fell off, and he had this his forehead was like bleeding like crazy, and he like fell off, and everyone was like, "Fuck!" Like someone call an ambulance. Anyway, so there was a moment where Shay, he was like, "Can everyone give him some space?" Because everyone was crowding around, not really doing anything. He's like, "Everyone clear out. Unless you're doing something, get out of the way." And the producer was standing right next to him, and she's got her arms crossed. And they're like, "I'm the producer. I need to be here." Just didn't do anything, and he was just like, he didn't know what to say. He was just like, "Okay." She literally didn't do anything. She just stood next to him the whole time while like other people like put bandages on his forehead and everything. And then they took him away. I don't know. He got an ambulance or something. And then there's like blood everywhere. And she asked her assistant, she's like, "Clean that up." The unpaid assistant gets that person to clean it up. Clean up the blood. Fuck. Anyway, that's my high and mighty producer story.
And there's so many egos in this industry. I'm telling you this right now, like from both photography side to like the videography side, you'll always encounter a fucking ego. I hate like myself personally. Yeah. I just can't deal with it. But at the same time, that it in itself is like how you deal with that ego and how that ego affects that project and like how you try and like get, move forward through, like, let me phrase this again. How you deal with that ego on set will really help out your career. Right. Just understanding to know where they're coming from and just like, you know what, this is something that I, really can't control, but I need to just move and do my job and just get this over with. Yeah. Is the best way to kind of deal with an ego like that. Yeah. Because in the end of the day, snapping back at them, it's not going to really do anything much, right? It might put them in their place, but it depends. Okay, it depends. Yeah. But like, on another tangent, I have another creative friend who she was working a fashion shoot, and what happened was the assistant of one of the modeling agencies was there. Right. And what ended up happening was one of the assistants, because they're just such a suck up, they were there supposed to be running and helping out with like dressing and stuff like that. Yeah. But instead they started snapping at her. Who, as her, she is like the stylist. She's the one who put everything on. She's the one who pulled the clothes. They started snapping at her. They started, going in and saying, "Why isn't anyone talking to me? Someone needs to be here." And most of the time, they're just taking selfies with half the models there. Yeah. And so, like there will always be ego in not all the sets you'll be in, but like a lot of the sets. And you just have to kind of like let it just wash over your back and just like say, you know what? Just keep going. Just keep working.
I think the most important part is like you need to know what your job is on production or just like in any creative field. You need to know what your job is and do it as best as you possibly can. If someone else is getting in the way of that, you've done everything you can. You did your job as best as you can, and there's no point in getting upset over, other people limiting you in that way. Yeah. That's where the ego comes in, is people are like, "Oh, the sound guy is like, oh, can everyone shut the fuck up?" You know what I mean? If it's like, dude, I got to work on this thing. You're not the only one on production. It's kind of, that's where the ego comes in.
Well, and to kind of ride off of that. So if you're watching this, I love you, but I got to say this. When you're on set, the job that you are assigned, that is the only job you should be doing. Yeah. Totally. So when we hired out this one guy I knew, like we're really good friends and I love him to death, like absolutely love him to death. But when we were taking him on into the shoot, he was supposed to be a PA, but during the time he ended up like jumping on top with like telling actors what to do. He started doing like fight choreography, even though we're not saying we need to do anything like big. Yeah. He started talking about like the lights. He started talking about the camera shots. He started talking about like operating the camera, and we're like, and then he's like, even on set, he started dropping, you know what, I should be on a little bit more credit here because I'm like PA, I'm like this, God. I'm like this and this and this. I'm like, and in my mind, nothing but the biggest cringe, just because like you can't do that on set. No. And to me, like when you get taken onto any project, the role that you've been given, that's your role.
Yeah.
You can't be pushing yourself to jump to everything.
Right.
That comes in time.
And that's the thing is like people think it's the inexperience in that aspect. There's a lot of people who they might know you might know more than the director. The director might be like total doofus. He'd never been on set before, but if you're the PA, you know what I mean? I think the most you can do is come up to the director, maybe whisper in his ear, or come up to the AD and be like, hey, that thing's in shot or something. But as soon as you start making calls and trying to do other people's job, you lose everyone's respect. Your job is like, you got to do as much of your job as best as you possibly can.
Exactly.
Anything else, you lose so much respect on set. It's insane.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie. There's a reason why I wasn't the one running the project, but the person who's running the project would never hire him again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree. You got to stick to your guns, and you can offer up suggestions, but you can't be jumping the gun and saying, I'm this now, and I'm this now.
Yeah, it's a very film school thing, but it's a thing that like I feel like everyone kind of goes through that stage at some point.
Yeah.
Even if it's in their own head, and you kind of got to grow out of it and learn how to get past it. But I don't know. You still got to have sympathy for them because he's so new. He doesn't understand, they just don't, and they're used to doing one-man shows. So, I mean, like, maybe they should be blacklisted a little bit to figure out, like, hey, this isn't okay.
Yep. That, or just kind of like they have enough time to grow and work on their own projects to finally understand what, those roles are like supposed to be like.
Well, totally. Like, do you think if you're hiring someone inexperienced, new on, you should maybe preface them on set etiquette and expectations? If
you know that they know nothing, then yeah, totally. Mm-hmm.
But you would kind of assume already that they kind of have an idea of how to act.
Yeah.
During a production.
It all depends on their experience too, and like kind of what background they're coming from. Like the reason why I say this is because like the first time I worked with Mike on set, I didn't really know to not stare at the talent's eyes when they're talking into the camera. Like, see, no one taught me that when I was in school. And I went to broadcast journalism where I'm supposed to be dealing with news. So no one ever told me to not look at them.
Right.
And that's the one thing to me that like, I appreciated him telling me that in my ear. And, as someone who's new on set and new to working with Mike, that's the biggest thing that I have to be open to is that feedback and to be able to say like, you know what? Okay, I know my place. I know where I need to be without being resentful about it.
So many people, I hire a lot of PAs and I've worked with a lot of PAs, not necessarily ones that I've hired, or like I'll get on a set and I'm just given like a trainee, right? There's a lot of people that don't know how to take criticism without taking it personally. And that's like such a huge thing, not just in the film industry, but in creative fields in general, because everything is so subjective.
Yep.
Every production you go on, it's going to be like different rules, like things are going to be called different things. You just got to kind of like learn to adapt. But as soon as you start being like, you have an inability to take that criticism, it turns everybody off. Being able to take that kind of criticism is just, that is like a big growing point. I feel that's a good way to like, that's when I started being able to take criticism properly. I found that my relationships were a lot more impactful because people were just less annoyed by me. That's just the way it is. You have to learn how to take criticism and realize that it's not a criticism of you. It's just that you need to acknowledge how little you actually know about a specific thing, or know when, someone knows more than you, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's valuable to take that knowledge. It's not it doesn't impact you, or it's not a reflection of you.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of, your just state in the industry at that moment. But there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's in stages, right?
No, and I completely agree. It's honestly each set's different rules, different game, and you got to learn those rules before you can start playing properly. And that's the biggest thing about like that's the mindset I have on set.
Yeah.
Is, each person's going to be different. Each person's going to be reacting differently to how you are. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to read the room and know the flow of just how that set goes.
Right.
Because like, Floyd and I could be working together and we're working with a very serious model, someone who's like very, very sharp, so to say, because they don't have anything that really is like, in my opinion, it's like they haven't really worked on many diverse sets.
Right.
So like, well, in the past, like we worked with models who don't really know how to pose except for that specific pose.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep going back to that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And so, Floyd may be composing shots in his head, but I'm off directing and being, a goofy little shit on set in order to get them to start laughing. So that way they can start relaxing and saying, you know what, this is a fun set. Like, you don't have to be as like, you know, bottom of the line model agency, like strict look, like kind of giving off some blue steel shit. You know, you gotta have that, you know, that kind of like, you know, everyone else on set has to have that kind of idea too of like, they know what the set's like, and then they can start kind of giving off that energy to everybody else too. Right. So
just willing to be flexible and accept new ideas.
Accept new ideas, but also be the one too that breaks the tension and know how to be able to relieve it when it's time to relieve it, when it's appropriate to relieve it. Mm-hmm. So like knowing to feel the set.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that all comes from the top too.
Yeah.
Usually whoever's leading the set, it usually sets the mood. But you can always have one person who's got a bad attitude that can ruin the whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, I want to know, because we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
That was a horrible segue, but that doesn't matter. So we've spoken about this a little bit, so I sort of know your philosophy on it. Floyd, I haven't heard your thoughts on this, but what is your thoughts on like setting rates and ignoring your rate? Like, what situations do you give discounts? What situations you work for free? Yeah, what's your guys' philosophy on like essentially the value of your work when dealing with new clients, old clients, your own work, stuff like that?
I'm leaving this to him.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, usually if it's a mom and pop shop, I start out with my lower starting out rates, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
If a bigger client kind of approaches me, medium, bigger, I would go with the rates that I think that I'm worth.
Right.
Would charge that out fully. Discounts, I guess. I don't really offer discounts at all.
Right.
No friends, no family. I try not to take on any projects.
Yeah.
Regarding that, just it's really messy.
Why is that? Why no discounts?
Why no discounts?
Yeah.
Just sets a precedent on future jobs, right? Like, if I give you a discount now, what stops you from asking me for the same discount on a future project? Or if you refer me to another client, this is what he charged me. Like, why can't I get charged the same? Like, so just sets a precedent on how much you value your services and products, right? So
right. Do you ever lower it for any projects that you like really believe in? You're like, ooh, this seems like something that would be fun. This is something that I don't have on my show reel yet. Something like that. You ever do that?
For stuff I really want to work on, usually I can even go as low as for free.
Right.
I would buy the stuff, shoot it, send it to them.
Right.
This is what I can do for you guys. Maybe you would want to work with me.
Yeah.
So if I really wanted to work on it, I'd definitely consider either a heavy discount or a little bit of a.
You hear that, top, people? Right? Floyd works for free.
Depends. There has to be an asterisk to that free, right? So
no, but there are some people that won't work for free, like no matter what.
Yep.
And there's people out there, like I see there's that really popular Facebook page where film jobs come in. It's I need a producer, fixer, whatever, Canada edition. And there's a lot of low-paid jobs on there, and they get so much shit. Like, people will go insane in the comments section shitting on them over these low-paid jobs. It's like, man, the job's not for you. Like, if I was just starting out, that's something I would be really into taking.
Absolutely.
Right? Or if I didn't have it on my reel yet, and it was something I was really looking to get into. Yeah, I don't know. I think working for free is important, especially when you're starting out, and especially if it's like stuff you want to get into and you don't have an avenue into it yet. Like, I think all the music videos I've done, except for one, were like free. And it's usually because like the older music videos I did don't represent me. So I want to do a music video, and they're like, can I see your music videos? I'm like, I don't have any good music videos that are new, right? So I did my most recent one for free because I wanted to.
But like, I think that it comes with a specific trade-off for free work, personally. Yeah. Because depending on the free work itself, how much creative control do they give you?
Exactly.
Right? And if it's creative control that you want, then there's that benefit. But like I think the working for free bit, you can definitely use to your advantage as a creative, in my opinion.
Well, you really have to demand that creative freedom though, because a lot of people don't want to give it up.
But like there's other situations too where working for free works in your favor.
Right.
The reason why I say this is that just so people out there know, us being in this creative field, it gives us a lot of leeway to be able to offer our skill sets for specific things in return. So the reason why I say this is like I'm working out at a gym right now that doesn't charge me anything because I'm making content for them for free. And instead of having to pay $55 per month, I'm actually working out in their facilities 5 times a week, 2 hours a day. And if that was equated to like the cost, then I'm actually racking up a bill and I'm building them content as it goes on. So that's what I mean by like working for free can sometimes work in your favor because you're trading a specific skill set for a certain service that you want in return.
Right.
So sometimes you kind of have to be clever in the way you're thinking of what free means.
Yeah.
And so I know it means like for me that I'm going to be doing like, maybe 10 hours, 15 hours worth of work, but that means that I'm in good graces with this gym for 3, 4, 5 months, for however long I want to be there. Plus, they've already thrown competitions my way. And these are paid competitions where they need someone videoing or someone to create like sizzle reels of their events. So in the end of the day, like the amount of people that go to that gym with like the amount of backgrounds they have and jobs that they have that are, that could possibly use my services, and that these guys are kind of shouting my name out saying, hey, he's the one that makes videos for us. And all these people that are coming into the gym that are working there, that's a massive trade-off for my win.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, working for free, there should be an asterisk above the word free.
Right.
It's a value exchange. If you think there's value in it for you to create something for this company, something in this for this person, I think you should definitely take it on. But if it's a one-sided exchange, then it's definitely, something you can say like, I'm going to pass on this for now, and then maybe we can talk in the future or something like that.
Exactly. Like, and that's the nice thing about it. But the thing is though, you're not going to know in the very beginning what a proper value trade-off is until you've gotten burned, until you've gotten that one-sidedness, until you've gotten all of that in between. That's the big thing that I think that people should still jump onto and still not be afraid to do, is like to let themselves experience what it's like to work for free, experience what it's like to, to have the one-sided creativeness. Because I think there's so many people out there that are just like contemplating, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And they're stuck in this like perpetual wheel of not doing any action.
Yeah.
And I think, whether it's the right choice or the wrong choice, at least you're still building that momentum and growing, and then growing smarter about it.
Yeah.
Like I've definitely taken on clients in the past where I've definitely like offered more than what they were able to provide me, especially with free work. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I did it for free was because I was like, I like your company, I like what you're doing, and I want to, just constantly create for you guys because I'm a believer of the brand. But then once you realized, on your end that they're not the brand that you thought they were, because if this is the way that they treat, people who are willing to provide things for them, then that takes you out of that disillusionment, and it becomes this more of like reality of like, okay, I guess they're not the brand that I actually thought they were. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going to pull myself back. And then that's when you're more awakened to the brand and the way that they treat their customers and the way that they treat things through another lens.
Well, whenever people hear working for free, they're thinking in a monetary sense, of course. Mm-hmm. But I completely forgot what I was going to say. It related exactly to what you were saying.
Working with brands, being part of a brand.
Working with brands. Oh, right. I mean, even if the shoot goes south, even if your relationship with the client goes south, you're always learning something. And that's not something that you can learn through always getting paid gigs. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I've burned a lot of times, mostly from my own inability to set expectations. Yep. But that's how you learn to become a better filmmaker. And so many people will approach me, I don't know, they see my Instagram, they see that I'm shooting things and stuff. And honestly, most of the time, I'm not shooting things. That's just like old photos from old shoots because I want to keep my online presence present. I want people to think that I'm shooting things, right? So they see it and they think I'm shooting stuff all the time, and they message me. They're like, "Oh, can I come on one of your sets?" And I'm like, well, we can meet for coffee and we'll see. And it's like, usually I'm not shooting it. It's like, I don't have anything scheduled for the next like 2 weeks or whatever. And then the one thing I do, I'm doing it by myself. Right. So constantly looking for value in a monetary sense, especially when you're starting out, is not valuable. Yep. Not at all. Because you're ostracizing yourself from potential opportunities. It's building those relationships that is way more valuable, and learning from your own mistakes. Those are like the most valuable things in terms of working for free.
as well as too, like always asking for money, especially in the beginning from the get-go, you're setting yourself to have some sort of, you're not only setting yourself up for expectations, but expectations from the client as well. Yeah. Because, you know, the very beginning, even when I was taking on projects and I was like pricing myself out, I was really uneasy about it. And when I would be taking on these projects, I would have ungodly expectations of myself on the equivalent of like $1,000 video, when really I was just making something as small as like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And what I was charging was only like $200, $150. Totally. And so I was setting myself up for failure in a sense of, I set my expectation up so high because it's like, they're giving me money. And even then, I, like in the very beginning, I didn't believe in my own product. That's the unfortunate bit. When people price themselves out in the very beginning, they don't have belief in their product. They don't have confidence in their skills yet. They don't have that confidence behind their like reputation. So in the end of the day, you know, during that time when they're like, you know, getting paid or doing the small bits, they don't have that confidence to produce a good product. And because of that, it translates into the product as well. Totally. And then it sets that expectation of like, you got paid like this much money, so you should produce something really good for me. And then they don't follow through. Right. Yeah, I found that basically whenever a shoot comes my way, doesn't matter if it's paid or not, there's three questions that I've sort of boiled it down to. The first one is, am I getting paid? Am I getting paid? Second is, do I have creative control? And then third is this like a good business move, essentially? So if I'm not getting paid, if I don't have creative control, is there someone I'm meeting on set that would be valuable to have a good relationship with? Or is this a piece that I don't have on my demo reel that would be really valuable? Is it a logo on my website that would be really valuable, something like that? So if I'm not getting paid, then it needs to at least have one of the other two things. You know, if it can fulfill one of those criteria, basically, I'll do it. If I have creative control, then I'll do it because I can make a product that represents me. If it's someone that's valuable relationship, even when I'm not getting paid. That said, typically, if it's a valuable relationship, in my experience, there's going to be money. Like McDonald's isn't going to ask, you to work for free. You know what I mean? Because they have the money. Yep. So yeah, just being aware. And I also think that too, like when you're a company and you know you have money and you're going for the free route option, just know that that comes with a little bit of a risk. Yeah. Because that free route option, it may be the cheapest, but it doesn't mean you'll get the best product. Totally. And that's what I've often gotten on my end when people find out about my rates and I say, this is my rate. This is how much you do per hour. This is like my equipment. This is that. I break it down to them. Yeah. And then they go with the cheaper option. Right. And in the end of the day, if they end up with a video that doesn't stand out, so like, let me give you an example here. So I was working with a school. I'm not going to name names and which schools it is, but I met with the principal. He was really interested in the way I told stories. I was recommended. It was really great. Like it was going off in a really good relationship. He told me his budget, but I was like, this is a little bit shorter, but I'll try and make it work. And I gave him a small discount just because I thought it was an excellent opportunity to work with that school because it gave me an opportunity to tell a narrative that I really couldn't believe in because we were like pulling from found footage. We were pulling from like histories from like the school because it was a video for the retirement of a particular teacher. And like they were going to get like, video chats of like students who graduated. So I felt really compelled to really take on that project because I thought it was a heartwarming story. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, like I love telling stories. I love doing this. I'm going to take it on. I gave him a price and he was like, no, it's okay. Yeah. You're a little bit above our budget, so I don't think that we're going to go with it. What we're going to do instead is we're going to take a look and see if there's any parents that are willing to take on the job and volunteer. Yikes. And that to me, I'm just like, I'm biting my tongue. Yeah. Without saying anything negatively. Right. But at the same time, if you're going to go for that free route, and you're going to go to a parent with a handy cam, you got to have that expectation that it's not going to be the type of video that you wished it was. And then all the work that I gave you, that kind of like, because beforehand I gave him kind of a briefing of like how to start a narrative, how to begin that little, that process of, creating a cohesive narrative and storyline for this video. And I'm like, if you're going to be giving this to a parent who's only doing this for volunteer, they're going to have some expectation on you. Totally. And then you're going to have a hard time finding this out because that homework that I gave you was specifically from something that I know how to make. Yeah. And the thing is though, in situations like that, where they're thinking about going with a cheaper option, which I think has happened to everybody and will definitely happen to anyone who's... I'm not the first and I won't be the last. Yeah, exactly. Keep happening.
But the thing is, like, it's not worth convincing them of your value.
True.
Yeah, like I've had so many people that'll like, you know, they try and email them back and they're like trying to, you know, they try and convince them they're the value. They're like, oh, but I have this camera. You're not going to get the same thing with that person or whatever. But you kind of just got to put your hands up and be like, okay, that's my rate. And they'll see the difference when they go with the cheaper option, or they won't. Either way, they're never going to hire you. They're never going to pay you your rate. Yeah. It's not worth dropping your rate, and it's not worth trying to convince someone of your value.
And that's where, like, something that I've kind of worked on myself a little bit more recently. Yeah. Is I've stopped writing up proposals for clients that I don't believe are open to the idea yet. Yeah. So, like, so for a lot of the beginners out there, like, I highly recommend you guys practice this, where it's just practice writing proposals, practice writing pitches and stuff like that. But in the end of the day, though, like, what I've experienced, like, after having done this and kind of built my reputation up, is that when I'm interested in working with a client and I reach out to them just by a quick DM or an email, that I should just wait there. I shouldn't jump the gun and write a proposal and say, this is the video I have, this is this. Yeah. If there's no track record on their end from ever wanting to work with you, then you're fighting an uphill battle. You're having to try and convince them that this is a good business move. And in the end of the day, that's sometimes not the best method of doing things, because in the end of the day, that could really hit their ego, and then they'll start thinking, who's this guy coming off the street thinking that he's better than I am and knowing how to run my business better than I do? Totally. When in the end of the day, all you're offering is just a proposition or just an opportunity to make something that could really build or generate more awareness to that business, because not all businesses believe in the idea of social media. Yeah. And to this day, that still boggles my mind, but at the same time, it depends on the business. Yeah. So, I've kind of pulled back on that end, and I've just started producing and just releasing my own work that I'm a big believer of. So that way, when people, see my stuff and look at my stuff, if that's something that they're interested in, great. But if it's not, and they pass on, and it's a company that, like, I need some convincing to get on board, then I got to pull myself back, because then I'm becoming far more invested in the project than they are. And they're going to expect you to do 90% of the work, and you're definitely going to be underpaid there. Yeah. That's a big thing too, is just setting expectations beforehand, especially on projects. Actually, it's not out yet. Nobody's seen it, but the test podcast that I did, it was all about setting expectations. Nice. And I really do think that's, like, no matter what you're doing in any creative field, setting expectations is, like, your number one job over what you're making. Because if the expectations are set, you can do everything else right. And they're like, we wanted the video yesterday, but you didn't set that expectation that is like, oh, well, it's going to take 3 weeks, So setting those expectations and being the master of those expectations is huge. And, like, as a note for any listeners too, if you set expectations, overreach your expectations, and then, or no, how does it go? Over deliver. Under promise. Yeah. So in that way, that means, like, you say a video is going to take about, like, 2 weeks, and you deliver in one. Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah. That's great for you, because in that way it makes you look good, and it gives you enough time to make any revisions that may not look that great. So I think that's in my opinion, that was, like, the biggest eye opener. I was like, oh, I got to do that to myself. Well, like, open communication between you and your client throughout the life line of the project was very important in figuring out those expectations and what kind of final product they can see from you, and what you need to do while you're editing and stuff like that. So as well too, you kind of have to, and, like, I recommend to not putting so much expectation on the first project. Yeah. Because, like, sometimes, if you say, oh, I'll deliver in 2 weeks, and then a client takes 2 weeks to reply back to you. Yeah. Like, I have a client right now who I've sent off edits, and they haven't replied back to me in over a month, and I've followed up with them. Yeah. So in the end of the day, like, sometimes the client on their end, they're the ones that are kind of slowing the project down. You can only do what you can do. And that's why it's important to just, in being in communication, if they ever shit on you in that way, like, after, in your situation, if they come back and they're like, why isn't the video done? You have all those emails that you can point back to and be like, it's a track record. Yeah, exactly. And, like, that's why I'm a big believer of keeping everything in writing. Yeah, especially when it comes to emails and text messages. Yeah. Because anything over the phone, it may be great to have a little conversation over the phone, but it needs to have those kind of, like, sent and received timelines or time codes. I talked about this in my last one, is that whenever I'm on the phone with somebody, and I'll be taking notes, no matter what the phone call is about, I'll take notes on the phone call.
And then I follow up with an email immediately after and be like, here's what we talked about, sort of like, oh, just to confirm, blah, 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 outline everything over email. And then you can continue the conversation from there. But at that point you have like a date and a time to exactly when you talked about it. Because I've been in situations where,
See, don't you just love what we do?
Yeah. Oh, it's just it's such a maze all the time. But it's always like I'm constantly learning how to better set those expectations with the clients. But I've been in a lot of situations I'll say something on the phone, and then they'll get the final product, and they'll like, it's like months later, and they're like, oh no, we said we wanted 3 videos, not 2. That shit. Oh my god. I
know that too well. Oh my god. Well, you know what? That's the thing though. Filmmaking and any content creation itself, it's a literal love-hate relationship.
Totally. Yeah.
Like, it's like I'm okay. As a warning to anyone who's getting into this, it's going to be the hardest thing you're going to do. You're going to push yourself to your max. You're going to be pushing yourself to the very end, and all of that expectation and all of that work is literally going to be on your shoulders. But in the end of the day, if you truly, truly love it and you feel like it's the best thing for you, and that it's something that you want to do, then just know that you're gonna have to face against all of that. And the best way to the best way you handle and deal with those obstacles in your way is what'll define you as a successful creator, in my opinion.
Totally. Yeah, especially from the views of clients and other people in the industry that you're working with. Yeah, just important to do as best job as you possibly can, be honest, be nice, be open to communication and criticism.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, like that's the one thing that's really hard for me on my end, is to separate myself and my business. Mm-hmm. Because in the end of the day, I am my business, and I am like who I am as a person shines and follows through in my work.
Well, it's like when your business name is literally named after you, right? It's so hard not to take things personally while you're communicating with it. And when we communicate with clients and stuff, we're just thinking about projects. Yep. I mean, like, look at my place. Like, we're in my apartment right now, and you know what I mean? Like, there's no separation between my work and my personal life. It just is.
Like, and that's the thing, is like you kind of have to accept that you are your business, and like you can't escape it. But at the same time, like, I'm still a big advocate in my end for like separating yourself in your business. When you have your time, stick to your time. And when you have time on a client's time, stick to the client's time. Like, that's the biggest thing on that end, is like, yes, they can bleed back and forth, but there are things that you need to maintain in your life that can't be ignored. Like, I've met filmmakers who've never showered in like a week because they've just been so busy with work. And I'm like, dude, take a shower.
I had like, I mean, it wasn't like clinical or anything, but I swear I had like a mental breakdown last year working on some projects, just because I had no separation from my life. That was, my office used to be in that room, and I would close the door, and I was in there. I think it was like, basically like an entire week, I would like sleep for 2 hours at a time. I'd hit render on something, and then I would like sleep while it's rendering, and I would set an alarm like every 2 hours or 1 hour so I can like wake up and check the render.
Yep.
It was like a solid week of that, because I was dealing with both a Story High project, which was my like 10-minute short film, and then I also had client projects, because I'm not getting paid from the Story High project. In fact, I lost money on that. But I didn't understand the need to separate from my life at all. And I remember like walking outside, and I just felt like a zombie, like anytime I was outside.
Dude, you're not alone. Like, I went through this literally last year, and it happened around August, because I was balancing my job as a video editor for a production company, my own clients, and then I was also working as a community manager for a tech school. And all of that required me to stare at a computer screen, and I was staring at that screen for over maybe 10, 12 hours a day. Like, managing other people's calendars, replying to emails, setting up workshops, editing my own projects, editing projects from the production company I was working with, and all of that stuff. Like, although it gave me, some sort of income, in the end of the day, I wasn't happy. I was stuck inside. I was staring at my computer screen. And like, I swear, like, I don't think it was anything like over the top clinical, but I think I went through a mental breakdown myself, where I was just like, holy shit, I'm going way too fast. I'm going at it way too hard, like balls to the wall, too far. And I'm like, I need to pull myself back. I need to separate myself from any other than filmmaking and work, to like find things for other things. Like, I got to take care of my body. I got to be able to meditate. I got to eat. I got to have those moments where it's just specifically myself. because like we're literally on call for almost everything. Like, you know, drop a hat, a client can call you and say, hey, just wanted to follow up. Do you have time to meet right now? And I've lost friends because of this, because I've had so many of my friends call me up and say, hey man, do you want to hang out? Or, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm saying, sure. Yeah. And then out of nowhere, a client calls me. He's like, hey, can you make edits on this video right now? Like, it does, you know, they just gave me feedback saying that doesn't look that great. And because, and you know, filmmaking and editing and all that stuff was on like the top of my priority list, I would just like bail out on my friends, go home, like, and edit, and then deliver these edits within 2 hours, and then end up missing my friend's like birthday or get together. So that's why, like, even the guys in my university or my university buddies, a lot of them are not a big fan of me because I'm either always late, I schedule with like clients, and like I've literally isolated myself so much, being in this industry. Totally. And so, you know, I have to kind of separate that. And then separate my own life and kind of define where that line is. And I've definitely, I'm sure you've gone through the same thing too.
Oh yeah, burning out is definitely real. The last couple months for us was super busy. First, the start of the year was super busy. So I'm not a full-time freelancer. Right. I have a day job, and then I do photography outside of the regular work hours, I guess you'd call it.
Gotcha.
So beginning of the year, we were super swamped with projects, campaigns for spring, summer. Yeah. So I'd go to my day job, and then right after work, I'd work on trying to build these projects, mood boarding, shot list, and timelines, right? Figure out timelines and when we can shoot.
Also, when we can calling on to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting a crew together.
Assistants, crew together. So we did that for the first few months of the year, and then I think there was a bit of a break, and then my body was just like, no, you got to stop. You got to slow down. You got to figure out who you are right now and just take your time for yourself, right? So I think the last couple months for me, for sure, I've just been kind of slowing things down, not focusing on trying to find new projects right away, and just kind of riding the wave a bit. I'm going through the
same thing. Like the fact, like my house is pretty dirty right now. Like my desk, I haven't touched it, but this is the cleanest it's been in months. Like it has been insane, just because I've been focusing, but. Well, maybe not months. I would say last year, if you were to look at my apartment last year compared to this year, like I think I've been in this apartment for like 3 years now, almost 4, and I haven't put anything up on the walls. Like even now the walls are pretty bare, but I only put most of this stuff up in the past like few months because I've literally like been convinced myself, oh, I'm too busy. And also like, I'm going to move to like Toronto or something right away, you know, but I wasn't focusing on my own well-being. So I'm living my life in this messy house with just gray walls all day working, and it's just no way to live. And also your work is sacrificed when you do that too. You don't produce as high quality work when you're just digging your nose deep into it all the time.
And that's the other side of it too. It's just like you are so, you know, so tunnel visioned into thinking to yourself like this is it, and that you're neglecting all of these other foundational blocks that really hold up your life, like relationship time with your family, like having that connection still be strong, you know, connection with your friends who can help you separate from that identity of saying I am defined by this. Because for me, I say, like, to my mind, like what really kind of hit me in the gut mentally was this question of what am I if I am not a content creator or videographer or filmmaker? What am I if not this? And you look back and you think of all the things that are like that you had in your life, and you're looking at that and you're saying, well, I have friends. No, you stopped hanging out with them, so they left, and you're just stuck with yourself.
Right.
And all you're surrounded with is just photography buddies or video buddies who they just want to talk about shop. Yeah. And like, oh, I have family. Well, your family's busy too, and they only have time during the weekend. Yeah. Well, I have these hobbies. Oh no, you gave up that hobby because you decided just to go balls to the wall and nothing but work.
But do you think it's as much as I totally relate, I totally agree. And I think it's that's why it's so tough, is because it's so tied to your identity. And like even now I've recently started to like teach myself that it's okay to like take a few hours just to like play video games or like exercise. And but when I started exercising, I was like, man, I could be working right now. Yep. And I get anxiety when I'm not working, which makes me, but do you think there's ever a time where that kind of hustle is important? I think when you're starting out, that kind of thing is essential. Yeah. In a way.
Well, and I think because like, I think it goes to with like how many people know your name or your reputation. Right. If you don't really have any like groundwork or kind of like any tracks of your work in the past, then I think that's when you have where you can afford to go balls to the wall, and really like push yourself to get work done and to produce things, because then the more consistent you are, the more people see your work, the more, your work is out there,
right?
The better chances you'll get in getting clients and getting this and getting that.
Yeah.
That's why, for a solid year, Floyd and I actually took no weekends off, and we worked every single weekend that year, right? But it came with a lot of sacrifice, and with that sacrifice became our work. And it became like a inflow of like money.
I think you really need to find your limit is the thing. It's finding your limit so you can work your way back and know how to sort of build a healthy lifestyle that you can be efficient while not reaching that limit. But you really have to burn out in a way to know how to work backwards and maintain that productivity while, maintaining a relatively healthy lifestyle.
Do you hear that? That's right. Try, do something, don't overanalyze, and just keep working.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah. Fail, and then know your limit. Okay, let's go back.
Perfect. No, I think that's good. We're just over an hour here.
Nice.
Or we're almost at an hour. We're at about 56 minutes. But I think that's where we call it.
Yeah.
So what do you guys want to plug? Is there anything you want people to go to? Anything you want people to know?
To be honest with you, like the biggest thing that I would love to plug is, if you're a Calgary filmmaker and, you're in Calgary specifically, I think the biggest thing that our city needs right now is more people just to try and make things, just try.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the way I see it is that, from our times going to Vancouver and Toronto and talking with a few of the creatives there, we are so behind on the times. We are so behind in skill. We're so behind in like creativity and like in just work being produced in Calgary, that it's gone to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, like some people, when you tell them you're from Calgary and you tell them that you make stuff, they look down on you. And I think that is a reflection of not only just of us creatively and like not really bringing our names out there, not really having that courage to really speak what our culture is about. I think that's something that we as a whole collective should just start repping more loudly and working more loudly towards just like kind of building that identity of like, we are creative.
I think there's two sides of that coin though.
Really?
Because I do agree that Calgary lacks in a certain amount of creativity because a lot of people leave. A lot of the really good people leave because they want to, I don't know, the grass is always greener, but they also want to seek bigger opportunities that might not be available in Calgary.
True.
But at the same time, if you can make a living in Calgary off of your creativity, whether you're in the film industry, whether you're doing graphic design, then you're going to do pretty well anywhere else, because it's tough to make it here because there's just not as much of a pool of clients and other talent to work off of. So if you can make it in Calgary, I think you can make it anywhere. Whereas in Vancouver or Toronto, it's a lot easier to get on a set. The bar is just lower in a way. Even though there's better people there and more people there, the bar is lower because there's just so much more opportunity. So I would say that I think Calgary does breed some very fantastic people in small towns. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to leave, but I don't think you have to leave to be successful.
Yeah, I think you have to still try and make a mark. Here is what I think I'm trying to get to. Is just
if you're
like
fucking up here and you're not making it here, leaving is not going to get you successful.
Exactly. No, like make this your stomping ground. Make this be your fuck up land. Like make this, Calgary specifically is the best place to fail, because that's part of it, is that nobody knows about it.
And that goes for all small towns and non-city, non-main hubs,
because there's nobody like keeping a almost like a magnifying glass to your eye. There's not that super large community as well. So it allows you that ability to be able to fuck up on one set and like fuck up on one project, but there's still much more opportunities to go to. So I that's what I mean. It's just like, just people of Calgary, create, don't hide, don't overthink. Stop thinking that the grass is always greener on the other side. Even though like it might be greener, I mean, just produce stuff while you're here. So that way you're prepared in case you ever want to go.
Totally.
That's my thing.
Cool.
On kind of the same note, I guess, on creatives in general, kind of want to, and something I've been guilty of in the past for sure, is stop creating for Instagram. It's so real right now. It's
Stop creating for Instagram.
Stop creating for Instagram for sure.
Why is that?
Because it's so fake. It's so fake right now.
In what way though? Creating for Instagram in what way? Ooh. Like as an influencer or as like in what way?
Like I think photographers fall into the trap of making photos just to post.
Right.
On the feed right now, and then it's so bundled up with algorithms and influencers and bots. And bots is just so saturated that the chance of your photo being shown into the world through that platform is slim to none.
So you're saying just sort of be yourself.
I think be yourself and kind of venture into other platforms if you really want to go that route. But podcast, YouTube.
And what I also think too is like create for yourself. Don't create for other people. So what I mean by create for yourself, it means create things with your own creative vision, in your own way, in your own style. Right. Develop your voice, hone in on your voice, enhance it. Like that's the biggest thing, because everyone on Instagram is trying to be like this wonder babe, this
kind of cookie cutter.
This cookie cutter form of like, creation or creativity that, many people may emulate. They may get really good at it, but then they start to lose their voice in what they themselves may be passionate about. Yeah. So, everyone trying to be like the next Sam Calder or Peter McKinnon, great. Yeah. But what I mean is you shouldn't exactly follow in their footsteps, because in the end of the day, you're going to wake up one day, you're going to say, I want to make this. And you're going to be like, oh my God, I have no idea how to make that. Right. I just know how to make this.
And also success is not defined by other people. Like your path to success is going to be different than anyone else's. And and on Peter McKinnon, I see so many YouTubers that are like, they're just Peter McKinnon. They got like a beard. Yep. They got a black hat. They painted their office all black. They got their gear nicely lit on a background.
A ponytail.
Yeah.
But then like, cut his hair.
Yeah. And they're like got a solid wood desk. Like they are fucking Peter McKinnon. Yep. And the thing is like, you might find notoriety in that now while it's popular. But it's not a route to longevity. That's going to die off very soon, in my opinion. And Peter McKinnon did not follow a different Peter McKinnon to get where he is. He got where he is because he followed his own route. It's important to just make your own content, enjoy what you make what you enjoy, and you'll sort of find your path through that, and strategizing comes second.
Yeah. And for me, like the ultimate person to stand out like that, for me, like when like the person who really hit me the most, I was like, holy shit. No, yeah, it's totally no. Was actually Casey Neistat. Yeah, all of his found footage style work
totally
was what like awakened me into this whole world of videography and like filmmaking and photography. Yeah, because everything he made was so either high key or low key, like as in like quality, that you're like, you can obviously tell who made that. Right. Just by the look of things. Yeah. Him, Edgar Wright, like these guys have their own unique voice and style that they've spent years crafting, and that by, constantly producing, they've been able to afford the respect that they deserve on any set and any platform that they decide to stand tall in.
But that's not to say that emulating people isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No,
it's a good way to learn. And like Casey Neistat, he develops his skills from other people. Yeah. But it's an amalgamation of skills and things that you like. So what do they call it? Something copying is the biggest form of flattery, whatever. But that's really as far as you'll get, because you don't want to be somebody else. Yeah. You can take their tools and use them and add them to your tool belt, but that's what it is. It's a tool belt, and your tool belt looks different than everyone else's.
Yeah. Like, so you know what? I'll plug something in, like a little homework for anyone who's listening in. I highly recommend a book called Steal Like an Artist. I don't know who it's written by, but because it's not coming to my mind right now. But Steal Like an Artist is brilliant because it defines the line, in my opinion, of stealing and copywriting. Right. So when you steal like an artist, it means you're stealing inspiration, you're stealing aspects, you're stealing things that are not particularly the exact same work of art, but you're stealing techniques and tools and ideas from other artists and then combining them together to create a whole different project in its own way. Right. And understanding what it means to steal, because stealing doesn't necessarily mean, it's like a bad thing. It means that you're actually taking something that someone else produced and then, reforming it and creating it and molding it with a little bit of yourself in it. So by the time that, the more and more work you produce, right, down the line by stealing from other people, the more and more you're starting to craft, okay, I like this aspect. Oh, I can pull this off really easily. This is what I like. And then it kind of morphs and becomes your own voice because it takes on several traits from other people, but that's in your own way and in your own perspective.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, I highly recommend that book. Floyd and I read it religiously.
Great. Awesome. Well, unless you guys have anything else you want to say on creativity, on rates, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
I think we did, but I'm sure we could have kept going.
Totally.
Yeah, but this is something that we could have gone more on, but
it's been really good having you guys on this the first episode. You guys are the flagship guests on this thing.
Way good.
Anyway,
can't wait to be on more.
Oh yeah. You'll be on more.
Okay, sweet.
So what's your guys' social media for the people out there if they want to find out what you guys do?
So on Instagram, for everyone who is still making for the gram, I am at rvlph.g, so at Ralph G.
It'll be on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to be all bougie with the A turning into a V, but you know what? It's because somebody already took my other name, and I don't like the idea of Restless Ralph anymore. I want sleep. I need sleep, so I can't be restless.
You're rested Ralph now.
Yeah.
Well rested Ralph.
I am no longer rested anymore. Like I have just been like the last 2 days I've only had like 2 hours of sleep per night, and then only today I've only had 6 hours of sleep, and that's low for the recommended amount for an adult.
Totally.
Yeah.
Floyd?
I'm _Floyd_G.
Oh my gosh.
Cool.
It wasn't exactly what he wanted.
I mean, I just wanted it to be Floyd, but obviously someone else took that. So
it's those old Xbox gamer.
Yeah,
handles.
yeah. It would have been like XX Floyd or something like that.
XX Floyd. Oh my gosh, that sounds like an adult handle there.
Probably. Oh, he is.
All right, cool guys. I'm gonna cut it here.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to the very first episode of Sounds Like Mike. If you want to hear more, there's a pilot episode available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and YouTube, everywhere that you can listen to this podcast. You can subscribe to it, make sure that you're notified for the next episode as well. Like I said, there's a podcast, there's a pilot episode that you can go check out right now if you want to have a little bit more. If you want to continue the conversation, hit out Ralph and Floyd. Their social media links are going to be in the description of this podcast or the YouTube video, depending on where you're watching it. And hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at FilmMiker. I'd love to keep talking to you about everything that we talked about today or whatever else might be on your mind. Anyway, that said, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next episode of Sounds Like Mike.